sitting on my doorstep, the people's passing by. They're coming back from getting wrecked, everybody's high. Saturday night, what a bitch, laying on the lawn. The morning comes to bring the switch after the buzz is gone.
Hello and welcome to Addictions, the podcast about addictions. I'm your host, David Wagner. Today on the show, we will be talking about the news of the Trump administration's most recent declaration regarding the opioid crisis in the United States. The declaration released today, Thursday the 26th of October, 2017, was pretty much mostly just kind words. I have taken the liberty of providing the more poignant quotes from Trump's speech for you. He pledged that, quote, "we will overcome addiction in America," end quote, and also said that, quote, "as Americans, we cannot allow this to continue. It is time to liberate our communities from this scourge of drug addiction," end quote. He also said, quote, "we can be the generation that ends the opioid epidemic," end quote. Now, the new declaration will be effective for about 90 days and can be renewed, and it will allow for the government to redirect resources in various ways and expand access to medical services in rural areas. All good things, but in the grand scheme of things, and of the size of the addiction epidemic, it's just not enough. The declaration will not bring any new dollars to fight the scourge of addiction that kills over 100 people every single day. I am really hoping that the Trump administration will do the right thing and direct federal funds in a multi-pronged approach for standard addiction treatment. As it stands, there really isn't a standard practice even when it comes to hospitals and how they deal with drug addicts. It is definitely true that some good can come from this, if the president actually follows through on the promise, and if Congress allows the thing to fly in the first place. Those are both very difficult things to predict. Lately, it seems that the government has been having all sorts of trouble getting anything done, period. But if on the off chance that this thing does go through, officials will be able to expand access to telemedicine services, including substance abuse treatment for people living in rural and remote areas. Officials will also be able to more easily deploy state and federal workers, secure Department of Labor grants for the unemployed, and shift funding for HIV and AIDS programs to provide more substance abuse treatment for people already eligible for those programs. Trump also stated that his administration would be working to reduce regulatory barriers like the one that bars Medicaid from paying for addiction treatment in residential rehab facilities larger than 16 beds. He talked about ongoing efforts to require opioid prescribers to undergo special training, the Justice Department's targeting of opioid dealers, and effects to develop a non-addictive painkiller. Again, this all sounds well and good, and if it really happens, it could really help. But it will by no means completely solve this addiction problem. Without proper funding, which Trump already stated would not be part of this declaration, many of the things Trump wants to get done will simply not get done, and we will basically make no progress. And as we all know, talk is cheap. I hate to say it, but this is a case where I will believe it when I see it. And to be frank, the declaration disappointed state officials and public health experts who say a lot more money is needed to respond to this deadly epidemic that is outpacing the efforts thus far to contain it. Policies, they said, won't accomplish much without substantial investments behind them, and I believe that to be true. I have been following politics long enough to know that no matter Democrat or Republican, generally the only time politicians tell the truth is when they call each other liars. It is unfortunate that in this day and age, our own government leaders cannot agree on what is clearly the best way forward, and instead only thrive on the division that they create among us, the citizens. This is very saddening to me, as I want to be proud of my country and government, but it is just becoming more and more difficult all the time. Enough of the political ranting, I apologize for that, but this is a serious issue. People are dying on a massive scale from these types of drugs, and it hits home for me. Because as you all know, I was addicted to opioids for a very long time, and the struggle to get to recovery was the most difficult experience I have ever went through. We need action on this issue. Not simply kind words and well wishes, we need action. Real investment towards the health of our population. I do not see why that is so difficult to see for some people. Let's all keep our fingers crossed and hope that things work out. Better yet, call your state representative and urge them to push for funding to fight the opioid crisis. No matter what state you are in here in the United States, you can easily find the phone number for your local and state representatives by searching Google or going to your county courthouse. Again, urge your representatives to get behind the push for funding this thing. As always, I want to thank you all for listening to this episode of the Addictions Podcast. It means so much to me to know that you guys are listening. You can always listen to every episode of the show at www.addictionspodcast.wordpress.com/episodes. The Addictions Podcast can also be found on Facebook at facebook.com/addictionspodcast. And if you really love the show and want to help out and really support what we are doing here, visit www.patreon.com/addictions. Again, that's www.patreon.com/addictions. And remember, never quit quitting.
Sundays you prayed Uncle John, you poisoned yourself last night. Mary slapped your friend Tom, you got in a hell of a fight. Monday comes and it's back to work, the week seems so damn long.